Oh, hello and welcome to What We Talk About with Jamie Jakes. I am him and I am here to talk to you guys about the NFL trade deadline. More specifically, the NFL trade deadline with the NFC North, because every team in the NFC North made a trade. We are going to focus today mostly on the most meaningful, in my opinion, which would be Donovan Peoples-Jones heading over to the Lions from the Cleveland Browns. That's my two favorite football teams, the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions, so I have a lot to say about that. But first, let's talk about, very quickly, Mr. Dobbs heading from Arizona by way of Cleveland to the Minnesota Vikings, a fill-in guy for at least 1 year. I think the reason the Vikings took this guy was, A, to continue to help develop their young talent there at wide receiver and make Justin Jefferson happy for the rest of the year, assuming he does come off of this injured reserve, healthy and ready to go. Never a good idea to try and re-sign your superstar potential diva wide receiver. Not saying that Justin Jefferson is that, but he is a superstar wide receiver, and superstar wide receivers like having a good quarterback throw them the football. And if you don't have a good quarterback throwing the football, maybe they're less likely to re-sign with you. Maybe they're more likely to test free agency. And I think that's what the Minnesota Vikings are trying to avoid with this move. So overall, kind of smart. I don't think in any way this move puts them into consideration for the playoffs or to win the division. I think it's going to be the Lions going to run away with this division. Feels like they need maybe 3 more wins the rest of the season to make the playoffs and to win the NFC North at this point. Which brings me to the Chicago Bears spending a meaningful draft pick on a great player. They got Montez Sweat. He's great from the Commanders. Did not expect the Bears to be buying at this point of the season. Kind of confusing. Does it make the team better this year? Sure. Do they have a chance at winning the division? No. So just a little bit of a head scratcher there from Chicago. Not the first head scratcher we've had of them with the Chase Claypool trade from last year. And finally, who I think made probably the second wisest or maybe the wisest decision, tied for the wisest decision in the NFC North, was Rasul Douglas getting traded away from the Packers. They got a little bit of juice for him. Yeah, I think the Packers are being honest with themselves, like, hey, we're not going to win this year, so let's try and get value where value can get gotten, and that's what they did by trading away a cornerback here leading up to the trade deadline, which is today. Which brings me to Donovan Peoples-Jones heading over to the Detroit Lions. Now, if you missed our episode, we did it last week. It was the top 10 trades that are going to win Super Bowls. And we all basically had James, our NFL insider, said just literally any wide receiver for the Lions. In my opinion, this was the biggest need. I know some analysts are saying maybe the Lions need more pieces on the interior defensive line. I don't agree with that. I think the Lions statistically have been fine stopping the run, and defensively in the back, in the secondary and pass rush. I think they've done a great job. I don't think that was a need that needed to be filled by the Lions at this point in the season. Leading into the season, a lot of Lions fans kind of got triggered by them getting put very low on the list of offensive weapons, specifically with wide receivers. Everyone was kind of ranking them in the range from like 20 to 30 range. I think Lions fans kind of thought that they were better. And now that we're seeing Jamison Williams perform, or lack thereof, like, he's been good, but he's not been the superstar number 1 wide receiver that we drafted him to be at this point. And, you know, I love Josh Reynolds. I love the rest of the targets that they've got in Detroit. Personally, as people, seems like they're great dudes, but I don't think any of them would be wide receiver 2s on a lot of other football teams other than the Lions. I just think this is a great move for the Lions because the success becomes more sustainable when we're not entirely dependent on Jared Goff just balling out, which he has all season so far outside of the Ravens game. Jared Goff has absolutely balled out for the Lions, been everything and more that they needed him to be to elevate this team from maybe a year or 2 out to they are Super Bowl contenders this year. And they're acting like it, making a move in a position of need in the trade deadline. The Cleveland Browns, on their side of things, they get a bag of balls for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Nothing to write home about there. Why do they need to trade him? Because they've got a lot of depth at wide receiver, honestly. They are a quarterback away still to being a Super Bowl contender. Their defense is great. And they just honestly didn't need Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's scheduled to be a free agent after this season. I don't think the Browns had any plans of re-signing him because they got Elijah Moore, who they consider is their true number 2 there in Cleveland. David Njoku, obviously Amari Cooper would be their number 1. David Njoku has really stepped up as a receiver for them too. And even like Goodwin has done a really, really good job. That's been a little bit surprising. Speedster kind of stretching the field for him. So they kind of just didn't need this piece in Donovan Peoples-Jones, and they haven't really been using him. Coming out of college, out of Michigan, the Browns thought they had a great steal. They were really excited about him the whole time. 6th-round draft pick. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Had a disappointing career in Michigan. I think we all know why. It was probably more of like a quarterback issue than a Donovan Peoples-Jones issue. And his skill set is really exciting for the Lions because he's a perfect number 2 because he's so versatile. He does everything good. He doesn't do anything great in terms of NFL, which, is a super high bar, but he does everything good. He can separate. He can find a hole in the zone. He can beat man. You can also just throw him a jump ball and he'll go up and get it for you, which I don't think is a skill set that this Lions team has in a wide receiver currently. Like we have a field stretcher in Jameson. We have a guy, a superstar in Amon-Ra St. Brown, a true wide receiver 1. And we have, just a lot of guys that are like very limited in what they can do. And the Lions have been getting a lot out of them. And that's why I think this is super exciting because Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think where he fits in on this team is the true number 2, making JMO like the true number 3 field stretcher and just provides a lot more versatility, a lot more sustainable success for this Lions team. I also think, which doesn't get talked about enough about this Lions team, and I think a lot of fans are very aware of it, I don't think the national media is the Lions are very protective of their culture. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a great culture fit. He is a Michigan guy. I assume they did their due diligence on him. I assume they're very comfortable with him and his character as a human being, as well as obviously on the field, because in the Cleveland Browns, you've heard a bunch of stuff from their receivers, right? Obviously, the OBJ fiasco, Jarvis Landry never happy there. You always hear kind of rumblings from that wide receiver room historically, except from DPJ. He's always just kind of showed up, overperformed what he was drafted to be, and made a lot of great plays for the Browns over the years. A lot of game-winning, one in particular, Baker Mayfield hit him in the corner of the end zone on their playoff run season to beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals, to honestly keep him in the playoff hunt at the time. Looking back at it, it was a massive play for the year. DPJ, like I said, can do it all. And it's really exciting. And I think he is a cultural fit for this Lions team. The final point I wanted to make, being a Browns fan and being a Lions fan at the same time, is this is a perfect example of how both organizations run. The downside with the Browns and the upside with the Lions. Andrew Berry, he is a man who believes in everything that he does, and he's going to stick to it. He's held on to guys like Anthony Schwartz for way, way, way too long, guys that they were excited about coming out of college, didn't perform, didn't produce, and they just hold on to these guys for forever. Now they've got Elijah Moore, who, in my opinion, has been maybe a slight downgrade for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Just Donovan Peoples-Jones hasn't seen the field because they used such great draft capital to bring Elijah Moore in this offseason. And they're not tied to DPJ in any way over there in Cleveland. They're just like, honestly, probably putting a lesser talent out there and trading away the better one, which is great news for the Lions. On the other hand, who can be humble, take a look at what the roster looks like now what we expected JMO to be, and be like, hey, we have seen JMO perform coming off of the suspension and coming off of the injury last year, and it's been slightly disappointing. He seems more like a wide receiver 3. This team still needs a legit wide receiver 2 to take them over the top, to be sustainable, to beat those superstar teams regularly like we've already seen them do. And they're just going to go ahead and forget about the mistakes they made in the past and plan for the future. Brad Holmes, I think, exactly did this with this move, acquiring Donovan Peoples-Jones. Good timing, too, for the Lions for what it's worth. They are going into a bye week. DPJ has the whole bye week to learn the playbook, to get incorporated with the offense. Fantasy football-wise, he is probably available in a lot of leagues. If you're in a deep league or if you're just desperate for some help, I would go ahead and pick him up right now and stash him, especially if you have some players in IR that are leaving more room for you in your rosters. I would not start him in week 9 or week 10, coming off of the bye week. I would take a week to see what he looks like coming off of this bye. I would expect him to kind of work his way into the second wide receiver role over the course of the next several weeks. Okay. So kind of looking towards the end of the season for your fantasy football playoffs, DPJ might be a valuable asset as a wide receiver too, or like a handcuff guy if Amon-Ra St. Brown does go down again in the later part of this season. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel. It's a brand new channel if you're just finding it. It is brand new. We just started 3 months ago. My goal was to get 100 subscribers in the first calendar year. We're way ahead of that schedule. As I'm recording right now, we have 66. So if you could please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, share it with your friend. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you and good night.